Do you struggle to say no even when your body is begging you to slow down? You keep pushing, you keep giving, you keep saying yes, even when it doesn't feel good. But part of you feels like you have to. Well, eventually that pattern might just catch up to you. If this resonates, I feel like this episode is going to be a powerful one. Welcome back to Becoming Unbound. I'm Carly Butler, and on this podcast, we talk about all of the ways that we keep ourselves stuck and how to break free of those old patterns and the things that are keeping our small selves in the forefront. So, in today's episode, I sit down with Naomi Tessler, who is a beautiful human being inside and out. This conversation is amazing, friends. She is a intuitive healer, a community arts facilitator, a drama therapy worker, and someone who truly embodies what it means to find freedom within yourself through songs, through her voice. She has had nearly 2 decades of experience in her field as a multidisciplinary artist, Reiki master, energy intuitive, and she helps people move through old patterns and reconnect to their intuition. In our episode today, we talk about boundaries, we talk about parts work, we talk about the different roles that we have, and she shares a beautiful story of what freedom means to her and how unlocking her voice was that key to freedom. So, as you are listening, I want you to ask yourself this question: what if the reason you feel stuck isn't a lack of motivation, but a part of you that is stuck in survival mode? All right, friends, let's get into the episode. Naomi, welcome to Becoming Unbound. I'm so happy to have you today.
I'm so delighted to be here. I really appreciate and respect the work you do with your podcast, and I just feel honored to be part of it.
Thanks. Hopefully, today we are going to inspire and maybe give some really cool techniques for people who want to feel a little bit more free or are just feeling a little bit stuck in their life. So, Naomi, was there a time in your life that you felt stuck and you recognized that there was something that needed to shift or change?
Absolutely. There's been many moments in my life like that. I'm 42 now, and I lived with this pattern of constantly feeling like I had to do everything myself.
Mm.
As a solo entrepreneur, I have a theater company, I am an energy healer and a channel, Reiki master, singer, playwright, etc. I wear a lot of hats. And yeah, it always felt like I had this rhythm of being my own boss, which I love, and yet to a fault
Mhm.
of taking on way too much and burning out. So I would go really, really big and then fall apart, and really, really big, do so much, put out all these amazing things in the world and fall apart. And my pattern was completely unsustainable
Mm.
to the point of, struggling with mental health, moving to deep depressions and then moving through it, but then, doing the same habits of going really hard all by myself and then crashing and recognizing that I am no good to my clients, to my participants and workshops and projects, even to audiences, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not giving myself time to rest and recognizing that, as there's a big movement right now, that rest is revolutionary,
Mhm.
rest is resistance to our capitalist culture. So, yeah, I learned the hard way, body, mind, heart, and spirit, that practice of going at everything alone, it really doesn't serve me anymore. And I'd say my biggest crash happened during the pandemic, when we had to pivot everything online. And all the time I spent with the computer, where I was used to spending so much time with people in person, connecting, co creating artistically, doing healing sessions in person. Distance healing is great. It works. It's effective. And yet for me, as somebody who's very, very much a people person, I started feeling energetically depleted and drained, and my own sense of motivation, inspiration was, I'd say, like at a level 1 out of 10.
Mm.
And as I'm sure you know, like operating on pretty much empty is, it's very hard to give from that place. And my work is founded on giving. And so I'd say, yeah, 2021 into 2022 was my biggest moment of burnout.
Mm.
And, and I had to really look at the way I live my life and totally take it apart, which was
Wow.
really hard. And I was even thinking this morning, oh gosh, I'm coming back to that old pattern.
Oh.
I was looking at my to-do list and realizing, oh wow, I haven't reached out to community to co-create this with me. My theme of this fall has been collaboration, and it's been so enlightening and wonderful. But yeah, it's very easy to slip back into that. Um, and then it comes to, intergenerationally, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I come from a family who have survived the Holocaust, who were killed in the Holocaust. So, you know, from a survivor mentality, when you talk about freedom, this place of uh, like coming from oppression,
Mm.
and working with folks. A lot of my career has been working with folks living through systemic oppression. And so, being in that mindset of kind of survival, and for me, survival translated into doing everything myself. Uh, it's not only been a shift for me personally, it's had to, this recognition of we heal forward and backwards. So
Mm.
looking at how to heal the intergenerational trauma, the ancestral trauma that's encoded in my DNA to be able to transform this conditioned way of being in the world.
Yeah, I think that resonates so beautifully because as solopreneurs, you can take on so much to survive because it's comfortable, because maybe you feel like you're the only person you can trust because there's so many other people out there that maybe you've had experiences where you don't trust. So you end up just stacking all of this on top of you. And it sounds like to me, it's all from this beautiful place of wanting to get out your art, your healing, your creative juices into the community and to collaborate with other humans. And trying to do it all really puts you in a place of just overwhelm and that burnout. And I think there's this very nuanced difference, and I wonder if this you can feel this when you started to become aware of this pattern, is that there are seasons where you go harder for your craft and for your community, and maybe
Mhm.
you do take on more clients, and then there are seasons of rest. I think and if you can kind of balance those out and be like, this is a season of rest or this is a season of go, go, go. But I think we end up going into these like extremes where it's like
Mhm.
way too much go, and then we are forced into rest. And it's really interesting that you found awareness in your most recent sort of experience of living life and being in community and being of service, that you all of a sudden were like, ooh, here's this pattern again. What did you do in that moment where, like, was there something that you dropped from your schedule? Was there something that shifted for you where you're like, oh, I have awareness that this is changing. I'm going back to that old pattern. What did
Mhm.
you do in that moment to regulate through that and or like not go in so deep to burnout?
Yeah, thank you for that question. You just said the word regulate,
Hmm.
and that is absolutely key, right? I'm training to be an expressive arts therapist. I work a lot with therapy clients, and self-regulation, nervous system regulation, co-regulation is a huge part of my practice and how I work with clients and how I've learned to work with myself. So the way I the way I start sensing into the overwhelm is I literally feel my whole body quickening. My heart rate is
Mhm.
faster, my speech is faster, just my way of doing things feels like this, like I start recognizing I'm on the wheel, and before I used to have a hard time witnessing that pattern, being aware of it, understanding what was happening in my body. And now, since the burnout, since I've done, a lot of work to take care of myself, I have trained myself not to ignore it anymore, to
Mhm.
really tap into my body's wisdom and to listen. And I pay the price when I don't listen. So I no longer have capacity to ignore my body and its
Yeah.
voice. And so most recently, when the awareness came of, as you said, like stepping back into this old pattern that's harmful, I literally paused and allowed myself to shut off all social media platforms, go offline so I could go internally to my own system rather than these social systems and offer myself the practices that I share with clients, like meditation, dancing. I love dancing, singing, and journaling, and I'm a big collage fan. I love making collages. So yeah, coming back to my arts practice, I'm a prolific songwriter. I've been writing since I was 5. I've released 12 songs, and yet there are so many more waiting in the wings to be recorded. And when I do different concerts, I it's so exciting to on the spot choose which ones I'm going to perform. So yeah, coming to my arts practice, my creative tools, my spiritual tools. I love the practice of writing letters to different parts of myself. Okay, dear overwhelmed part, or dear anxious part, or dear inner child, or dear conditioned pattern, etc. And after I write the letter, it's so relieving. And then I channel a letter back, and it connects to parts work, which is a part of a practice called internal family systems. And also, I'm a drama therapy practitioner of 20 years. And we do a lot of work with role play and connecting as well to different parts of ourselves. And so, yeah, I've just been taking the space and time to do the work with myself that I do with others. I have a big prayer practice, tapping into my spirit guides, archangels, ancestral realm, the divine realms. So I'm very proud of myself to say that I have literally been able to cut through um, the word bullshit is coming up. Cut
Yeah.
through the bullshit that my mind is telling me of, like, go, 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 go. You need to do more, more, more. And to recognize again, that's part of our unhealthy culture,
Yeah.
doing rather than being.
And I think as females, and I think a lot of our listeners are females, that this feminine approach to life has been forgotten. Like there's such I find it I'm like sometimes just like I get sad for the female feminine version of me that just does
Mm,
want to like frolic and do art and draw and be creative and like sing and dance and just have like space in my life to do that. And sometimes I'm like, "Oh dear, I haven't nurtured her in so long because I have been in my more masculine frame where I am going, doing, ticking off the things in the to-do list, being very much in my accomplishment era." And it can feel good too. But I
mm,
think when we get so far out of balance, it's like I can feel my body literally shifting and like my masculine side gets stronger and stronger. Um, all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, I feel kind of like I haven't let her out," or I've been living too far into this, and I wonder, I think you're probably intuitively and very naturally tapped into that feminine because I believe the feminine to be more creative, so that's beautiful that you can lean into that, and I think that there's both of those parts in us, and I think that it's really relevant to and sort of in, what's the word? It's beneficial to have both of those parts.
yeah.
And that leads me I wanted to ask a question about this parts work because I feel like that is one of the things that gets us stuck, that a part of us, masculine, feminine, part of us, a childlike self, a teenage like self, those little parts of us can be the things that have us stuck in
Mm,
these systems, in these societal pressures, in these, places in our life where we're like either stuck or just like we know that there's something unhealthy going on, and it's those parts of us. So is there a practice? I mean, or maybe you could give us kind of like a general overview, because I find it fascinating that
mm.
those parts of us can be the thing that keeps us stuck. Would you be able to give us a little like lowdown on parts work and what that can look like, and the letters maybe that you write to those parts?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I am not a full-blown practitioner of internal family
Yeah,
systems.
yeah.
So the direction I come from again is kind of weaving what I've learned about IFS with
Mm,
therapy practices. When we are actors, we play different roles,
mm,
right? And when we are, I facilitated so many trainings and workshops using theater as a tool for personal growth and healing and social change. And in all the theater work and drama therapy practices I have facilitated and participated in, there's this understanding that there can be some spaciousness between the roles we play.
mm,
Whereas when we're stuck, we're going, 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 and there's some pieces of ourselves that are not integrated. Or we're going, 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 and we're playing out one role again that's stuck in a pattern, a familiar pattern that has maybe served us in the past. Or if we go back ancestrally, that's maybe served us when we needed to run, or like way, way back, served us when we needed to run from a bear, right? If we go way, way back to our collective origins, when there's been experiences of danger and how we respond. And, when we think about financial growth, the danger is poverty. And so we're kind of moving, 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 sometimes without thinking of in that survival mode of I have to keep going, have to keep going because we're playing this role of keeping up with society, right? Of keeping up with the social norms that have been established. So if I look at the different parts of myself, um, and what I find fun and playful in IFS and then in drama therapy is we give the roles a name. We give the different parts a name. And the name that I've given to to the part of me that's like the cheerleader and peppy and wants to go, go, go and give, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She's Patti Simcox. I don't know if you're familiar with Grease. I was a big fan of Grease when I was a kid. I know all the songs and I'd watched the movie so many times. And so if you're familiar with Grease, you know that Patti Simcox is the unconditional cheerleader. Always happy, very performative, and yet that's who she is. And so I've spent a lot of time with Patti Simcox in myself and really extrapolated, is this truly who I am? Am I always Patti Simcox? Or are there some like, what are the storms? What's Naomi's storm part? What's
mm.
the unconditional falling rain part? There's so I'm using a lot of nature examples, which I'm delighted by. And yet, there's also like I got this like growly dog part. I'm a mom, and so I have this mama bear part. So for me, in a kind of creating that spaciousness where I can look at the ensemble of parts, if we're using drama therapy language, um, in IFS, what I've learned is that it's called a community of parts, right?
Mhm.
And so, whichever practice I'm coming from, when I can have that opportunity to get to know each of these parts or each of these roles that serve me in different moments of my life, like I love Patti Simcox part of Naomi in certain moments, and then other times when I named the word performative, and other times it's performative. I'm putting on this mask of being so happy and inspired and motivated when really inside I'm actually feeling so low and depleted. And I used to think that that performative aspect of me was kind of the main draw people had to me and the services I provide. You know, and I was running projects with many, many different populations over the years, creating projects about systemic issues like elder abuse or the systemic barriers in the mental health system and the stigma attached to mental illness, working with refugees, with homeless youth. I've served a lot of different populations, and I've come with, my theater-based, drama therapy-based tools and now expressive arts therapy tools and energy healing tools and more. I have felt that I've had to come with this big smile. And that big smile, again, is part of that cycle that has led to burnout because I am not happy all the time. And the more I fed into that um, falsehood, uh, the more the more depressed I would become, and the more I'd have to keep performing to keep it up. And what I've learned over the past several years, particularly the past 3 years, through that ongoing pattern of go and then burn, go and burn, ignite and burn, we could say, as a fire metaphor, is that when I'm able to be fully real with people, fully honest with myself, come from a place of grief, come from a place of the full spectrum of who I am, my place of anger and rage and frustration and annoyance and also deep joy and ecstasy and passion and compassion. Um, I recognize that people can relate to me even more
Mm.
because I'm relating to all parts of myself and not shutting them off, casting them aside, which is what I've learned about IFS also is we cast parts and we put certain parts in exile. And again, in theater, um, we're playing certain characters to the detriment of the other parts that want to come through. And so, yeah, the gift of actually being in alignment and hearing all the parts of myself that are present right now, and trusting that in the human form, my spirit, my soul is taken on this body that is called Naomi. Um, Humanity is about all the different feelings we go through, all the embodied states of being, and by shutting off
Mm.
those lived experiences, the feelings I have ongoing, the spectrum, the spiral. Um, I'm doing a disservice to my human self, and being, um, a one-sided human flattens flattens me, I'd say. So
Yeah.
that's been part of the learning.
I think that dynamic is really it's a beautiful awareness because you're right. Like the cheerleader version of you, she's great, but if you're not fully embodying her
Mhm.
and there is this person behind her who's like, "Oh, I'm actually really flat today. I actually really wanted to say no to this activity that I signed up for or to this experience that I'm said yes to but I had to show up as this cheerleader version of me." I
Mhm.
think people can sense it. Like there's an energetic to that. And I think in you not allowing yourself to say no to that or just saying like, "You know what? Not today, but let's schedule that for when I have more energy or when I am just like when I've had a couple hours more of rest, I think I'll be able to show up to that activity better." Like you said at the beginning, it does a disservice to those who you are showing up for, to your soul in that moment.
Mhm.
And I think it's okay to say no and have those boundaries to say, I'm going to go to this. And, cheerleader Naomi would have said, you know, I'm going to stay for the whole event and I'm going to be here in my fullest. I'm going to cheerlead everyone on. I'm going to set up and take down and I'm going to be here for the whole thing. And instead, you could say, you know what? No, I have energy for 2 hours today. And
Mhm.
that's okay. And I'm going to come and connect with my community and do this thing, but I'm not going to be the first there and the first out
Mhm.
or the last to stay. So I think that is a beautiful awareness, and I love that you said, like, it flattens you, like, just to be that one-sided cheerleader all the time does nobody any good, and it doesn't, embrace the the dynamics, I'll say that, of a human being, and I think that that's really cool that you can see that. So, how does one start to say no or to live in those different, versions of ourselves, those different parts where you're like, "You know what? No, I don't want to do that today, but let's reschedule." Or like, "No, that doesn't excite me at all in my current season, so I'm going to say no." Have you had practice doing that, or can you walk us through maybe how that feels or looks like to, like, say, like, maybe you feel like you wanna say no, but you don't know how to actually make that come to life?
Mhm. Absolutely. I love talking about boundaries.
Yeah.
Love it because I was boundaryless for so long, and the greatest teachers I have had and I have ongoing around boundaries is my children.
Mm.
Because becoming a mom, when I didn't set boundaries, healthy boundaries, chaos ensued. Chaos, chaos, chaos. And that was detrimental to everybody's well being in our household. I've got 2 kids and they're amazing and they're full of lots of energy and spirit and they don't get along all the time. I could feel like our house is on fire.
Mm.
And, uh, the moments when I feel out of control as a parent is when I recognize I have not set up expectations. I have not set up the boundaries that will hold a really strong, loving, compassionate container for all of us to coexist and to co regulate in our home. And so, yeah, as a mom, I think it took till my son was 3 when my daughter was born. And I'm still a student of boundaries. I think I'll be a student of boundaries my whole life. But yeah, saying no was traditionally very hard for me because I come from, the theater background of yes and
Mm.
motto as an improviser. Yes and I have done improvisation for over 20 years. And in my business I said yes and because again I wanted to grow financially. When people would even ask me things like, "Can you do a workshop on the health benefits of laughter?" I would say, "Yes, and," even though at the time, this was, I guess, like 15 years ago, I wasn't really sure what the health benefits of laughter were, but
Mm.
I said, "Yes, and," so I researched them and crafted a workshop for seniors on that topic. So, coming back to the learning with my children, when I was saying yes and all the time, it wasn't serving any of us. There's definitely a lot of times when I say yes and then when I recognize I am so depleted, I am not acting from a place of love and compassion to myself predominantly, and then that's trickling down to my children and my husband. Um, yeah, I feel like I've learned the hard way. Like a lot of moms, a lot of
Yeah.
parents. So in recognizing that behavioral patterns needed to shift completely in order to, well, at first it felt like in order to survive as a parent and now thrive as a parent, which is, changes, I'd say changes week to week, month to month, year to year, because my children are constantly evolving beings and so am I, you know? So yeah, learning boundaries as a parent, they say that as we're raising our children, we're raising ourselves as well. We're kind of repatterning, reparenting to really be in alignment with ourselves to be in alignment with our children, and that word regulate again, co-regulate. It's an ongoing learning for me of co-regulating with my family, my kids and my husband, and then family of origin, and then mm, family of being human family.
Yeah.
So when you think about boundaries, when I think about boundaries, I actually get so excited about them and I celebrate them. I last night actually I went to my tap class. I'm a tap dancer, and I came home and I was so excited to go to bed. It was only 9:30, but I was so ready to get in bed, to do a meditation and journal, and then have a really good sleep. And the an older version of myself maybe would have gone on social media, made some posts, or checked out other people's posts and watched different people's Instagram videos, and I might have gotten lost in that
Mhm.
for a while. But coming to this place of saying, like you were saying no to activities when I don't have the energy, it feels so rewarding and empowering and soul nourishing, body nourishing. And when I work with clients, when I'm doing expressive arts therapy with clients or energy healing or coaching, I love when they say no to me. When I make an
Mhm.
invitation, when I a suggestion or an offering, um, n- when I start a therapeutic relationship with a client, that's one of the first things I tell them. I say, when I am putting something out there and it doesn't feel good for you, it doesn't serve you, you get a strong reaction in your body, a resistance. I want you to say no with like power.
Mm.
No, because that no to what I'm offering is a yes to yourself. And that's been the learning, the switching. When I say no to something that's not feeling good for me, I am still saying yes but I'm saying yes and to me. And like I'm teaching my clients, yes and to yourself is the biggest gift you can offer because
Yeah.
it shows me, and I hope that it's showing those that I work with and maybe those that'll hear the podcast, um, that there's a yes in the no.
Mhm.
That's been a huge teaching for me, and I when I override my boundaries, that's when I come back to your first question of stuckness.
Mm.
I get stuck in an old pattern that just, yeah, drains my life force energy.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, and I love how we kind of wrapped it around back to, like, that's how we stay stuck, is just saying, "Yes, yes, 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 yes," but, like, I love what you said is there's a behind the no is you actually saying yes to a need that you have had, and
Mm,
to bring this into, like, a real world example, it brings me exactly to, New Year's about a week ago when I had kinda understood in myself, I was like, "If this isn't feeling like something that's aligned, like going out and dancing or being with friends in that night, like, doing something bigger and out at some event didn't feel like it was something that was moving through me and becoming a yes." And so I actually ended up saying no to a bunch of different other events to say, I'm not going out. I'm not dancing. I'm not going to participate in any sort of extracurricular activities today. Like, I'm just going to go to a simple potluck dinner and I'm going to be home by 11 and
mm,
in my pajamas before midnight even hits. And maybe I might be asleep. And
mm,
I, like, instead of and usually I'd be the one to tell the party story of, like, "Oh, we went dancing until 2 in the morning and it was great and we connected with friends and we were at this place and it was a blast." And then this New Year's, it was like, do you wanna hear the fun story about how I went home and said yes to just honoring how I felt in that moment? And, like, that was something that I celebrated, and I think that you'd probably hear the same kind of success stories with those clients who say no to something that you're like, "This doesn't feel like I wanna be there." And the power that comes from saying no and breaking that pattern of saying yes, like, I don't know if you can even try to describe it, but to me, it's indescribable, that feeling of and I can, like, feel it in my face right now, the feeling that you can resonate with when you say no to something is so cool.
mm, it
Um,
is.
What do you think that
Absolutely.
is? What is that feeling inside when you say no to something that actually is the yes? Like, what's that feeling inside of our bodies if we tap into that?
Empowerment.
Yeah.
I see that as empowerment of acknowledging ourselves,
Yes.
respecting our bodies. As women, we've grown a lot through this, and yet still in many societies, many cultures, many families of origin, we are taught to overgive, to override, to ignore our bodies, right? And it's a systemic, it's a systemic global trauma.
Mm.
And it's encoded, I think, still in our DNA, and when we can shift that, we are healing forwards and backwards, backwards and forwards. And so when I come back to, you know, my response right away of saying empowerment, because like what you just said, I loved when you said, "I might be asleep at midnight." I felt so excited for you. I was like, "Well, that's juicy. Like, that's amazing," because we're told that, oh, we have to celebrate at midnight. There's a way to honor the new year, which is, like a Gregorian calendar, kind of like decided randomly, you know? And so when you could say like, this is actually what I want. This is actually what feels so good for my mind, heart, body, and spirit right now. It means that you're listening to your needs. As we said earlier, you're listening to your sense of embodied wisdom. Somatically, you're honoring the speed at which your nervous system is able to move. Yeah. And that's there's power in that.
Yeah, I think I think when you have lived a life and probably many lifetimes of not listening, and this
Mhm.
would again resonate from a lot of females as well, men too. I think we've also, you know, we've done a lot of healing over the years and we've come very far. But I think that idea that you've lived a life of saying yes, 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 and overriding and not listening, and just like all of a sudden, when you do say no, your body comes online to say,
Mhm.
oh my God, we have been trying to nudge you, whisper to you, talk to you, give you signs and symptoms that this is what we've been asking for. I have been asking for your physical body, your nervous system, the way that your organs want to rest and digest and like not be out till whatever time in the morning or not be overextending yourself at a social event or, being in a place where you've, totally said yes to too many things to your child and now you're just this like you can't show up as the person you want to be, as the mother you want to be. I feel like there's this great sigh of relief in all of the systems of our body, our brain, nervous system, how all those function together. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, it's like they're inside your body, and it's just like, yes, this blissful feeling comes over you because you finally listened. And I
Mhm.
think that is like, I don't know, my next question is gonna be about that version of freedom, but I feel like we just answered that question
Mm.
of maybe that's like the freedom that
Mm.
we're kind of like, maybe that's the like, that feeling of freedom where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I could do anything right now because 'cause I'm so empowered
Mhm.
because I listened."
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
Naomi, I always ask, what is your version of freedom? And like I said, I think we just answered it, but I
Mm.
wanna hear, like, how does freedom feel for you? What does it look like in your everyday? You're an entrepreneur, so there's a lot of working for yourself, which I'm sure you've discovered and you knew that that was the path that you had to take. But what does that freedom feel like?
Yeah, I'm noticing I'm getting emotional because the first thing that came up was voice. As a songstress, singer-songwriter, I channel music from the divine realms, but I co-create with the divine, with my ancestors. And so freedom for me right now is singing because for a long time I listened to a small version of myself saying, "Oh, these songs are just for me. I'm writing this just for me. I'll put some songs into the plays that I write and the performances I do, but these songs are gonna be, like, tucked away in a little ball, and, I'll listen to my voice recordings for myself, and, oh, maybe I'll sing these with family and friends, maybe at a gathering or open mic." But, I I eventually, in my 30s, came to a place of saying, "By the time I'm 40, I will have an album out there." And I had to free my voice. There was literally a huge block in my throat chakra, right? The energy center in my throat where, our communication comes from, our self-expression. And as somebody for over 20 years who's supported the empowerment of participants, of clients to use their voices to embody, transforming oppression, internalized personal and systemic oppression, somehow I I wasn't doing that for myself in the way that I didn't even realize was there and waiting in the wings. So, so yeah, towards the end of my 30s, I freed my voice by finally finding a producer that felt safe for
Mhm.
me. His name is Chris Gardner, and he's incredible. He's an internationally known bass player and producer. And when I met him, when I showed up in his studio, which was this beautiful Hyde Park apartment that he had, the recording space in his home is there's a comfy couch and there's all these books on spirituality and philosophy. He had birch bark and feathers and I just felt like I could relax and find deep ease in his space. The morning I came to record my first song, which is called Till the Shadow, and Till the Shadow is about this journey, literally, of my voice, of being in this place of the darkness and the shadow, and then coming into a place of mystery, and then coming to a place of unfolding. It documented a time in my life when I was going through struggle and then how I journeyed out of it. And and it also really documents this journey with my voice. So I had been tuning into a past life. I do a lot of past life work with clients and with myself. And this past life was literally a priestess, a healer who was also using her voice to speak out and to sing as a source of medicine, music as medicine. And this is, you know, trigger warning. For her ways of being in the world, she was tortured and she was sexually abused and she was put in a cage. It was like thrown to the bottom of the ocean. That's what I tapped into before I showed up at the studio.
Wow.
It was so intense. Those who maybe don't connect with the idea of tapping into past lives, we can come back to the roles, the parts, right? So this ancient part of me that from childhood, was taught to my voice could be shared in these small ways,
Mm.
small, keep it tight. Don't quit your day job was actually a message that I heard about wanting to be a singer. Don't quit your day job. I was a kid. What day job did I have? Um, so, so tapping into that part of myself, an ancient part as a woman, as like someone who values like being a witch, being a medicine carrier, healer from past lives and present. It was so intense. I bawled my eyes out and I brought that to Chris. I brought that story and I brought that energy and we sat for 2 hours. I told him the entire story. We connected spirit to spirit. human to human. And he said, this, this is the work. This is the healing. This is the music. And everything you're sharing, Naomi, this is going to be a gift to the recording. And I recorded the vocals in one go because it was coming from a place of depth and rawness, and there was no Patti Simcox whatsoever. This was pure honesty, living in the light of my truth, and surrendering to allowing my voice, no matter how vulnerable and scared I felt to do that, to say yes to recording, that it was something that I was being called to do. I had to show up for. And initially I said, oh, I'm just going to record these tracks and put them out on,
Mhm.
you know, digital platforms, but I don't know if I'm going to perform. I'm going to keep performing in theater. I don't know if I want to perform a concert with my music. And that was, again, keeping myself small. And eventually, the more I recorded, the more excited I became about performing live and sharing the music, which is my medicine, so truly my medicine, sharing it face to face with small, intimate, and large audiences, and really listening to the wisdom that if this song is my medicine, there's a possibility, a prayer, that it can be medicine for someone else, even if it's just one person, even if it's just for one moment, one time they listen to one of my tracks, that they can resonate with something. It can hold them in a place of grief, hold them in a place of pain, and in a place of inspiration and joy. It can meet them in the place that they're in. And so a lot of my music talks about journeys of moving through the stuckness, moving through states of being that are incredibly trying. And also, as an arts activist for as long as I can remember, it also talks about, um, yeah, social change. And the album is called Possible because my title track um, is Possible. And it's actually about a prayer of standing together, Israelis, Palestinians, Jews, Arabs, really people all over the world, of standing together to create change. And the lyrics are, I guess I'll sing it, goes, I know we've got far to go, and I know change is so slow, but I believe that it's possible. Yes, I do believe that it's possible. Standing together, oh, oh, standing together, oh, oh, standing together, oh, oh. It's the only way to grow. It's the only way to grow. Yeah. So that's the gift
Wow.
of, like, having freed my voice, and I keep freeing it every concert, every recording. And I'm also modeling for my daughter, who's got an unbelievable voice, who also wants to be a singer. And yeah, showing her that it's possible.
Beautiful. Wow, I'm blown away. That's incredible. Thank you
Well,
so much for sharing that. What a beautiful message. And I think that you are right. Change is possible. And I think what is key here is that being able to speak your truth. And this is why I started this podcast. This is why I encourage people who have never come on podcast to come on my podcast, because I
mm,
think when you speak the truth, it might seem scary, or there might be some consequence that you fear on the other side of that. But in all of my experiences of speaking truth in difficult situations or in positive situations where you're just like, I just want to tell you this amazing thing, or
Mm,
Having those difficult conversations or being honest and speaking to yourself in a new way is
mm,
such a cool tool for unlocking a new part of yourself and experiencing freedom on the other side of that truth.
mm,
And I think it's really interesting because your truth might not land with everyone and we might not resonate the same way.
mm,
But if you can find like, if you can listen to your own truth,
mhm,
there's also that means that you can probably hold space for someone else's truth.
mhm,
And I think part of this podcast is about having the freedom to speak your own truth and then also to listen to others and know that that is possible to coexist in these spaces. And I think that's just I don't know, that it gives me, like, goosebumps everywhere that I know that there's a level of freedom that is possible for and that word just keeps coming up, for everyone in our lives, in our immediate circles, and the world at large, and I think that your message to end off this podcast right now, here in this moment, is exactly kind of what we needed, and I hope that the listeners can take something beautiful away from that.
mm. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Mm.
And Naomi, if someone wants to find more of your beautiful songs or your work or your art or any way to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my music is on all digital platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, YouTube, SoundCloud. And you can follow me and my stories on Instagram. My handle is Naomi Hana, that's Hana Tessler. And then you can find out about working with me at my website, naomitessler.com. And for theater work, it's branchouttheater.com. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to have had this opportunity with you, Carly. And for the listeners, may it be so that there's been a message, a little seedling here that can be of service to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Naomi. This has been a beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
All right, friends, if this conversation did something for you, just made a little bit of a change, I want you to do a couple things for me. You can either share this with someone else in your life or hit that subscribe button, follow on Spotify or Apple, and just share the love. And that is one of the beautiful ways that you can support this podcast is by subscribing or sharing it with others. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will see you on the next episode of Becoming